Good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for just giving us a few minutes to allow some of our other participants to join this evening. It's lovely to have you all as part of our webinar this evening. We will be hearing from Nicky Stander, who is SANCCOB's Preparedness and Response Manager. So we've recently had to reschedule in the event that we might be needed for the Mauritius occurrence, and glad that we're finally able to have this opportunity to present with you. And Nicky is going to be discussing the topic of offshore refueling of vessels in Algoa Bay. Nicky is also joined by Margot Collett, who is the SANCCOB's Port Elizabeth Centre Manager. So please, if you do have any questions for Margot, she is very able to answer anything that you send her way about the Port Elizabeth Centre. And she's been with us since September in 2019. So it's just after the MV Seabirds Rehabilitated had been released. We have Nicky, as I mentioned, who is going to be examining why bunkering is an inherently risky operation and the threat that it poses to seabirds in an ecologically sensitive area. And Nicky will be using the MV Chrysanthi oil spill of 2019 as a case study this evening. We are going to also have a question and answer session after Nicky presents. So feel free to hit the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and type up your questions. We'll do our best to get to all of them. We are also live streaming to Facebook, so we've got our followers that's also online watching. Thank you for joining us. So just a little bit about Nicky before she begins. Nicky was previously in the role of the rehabilitation manager at our SANCCOB Centre in Tableview, overseeing the rescue, rehabilitation and release of seabirds, and with the increased focus on endangered species such as the African penguin. And during this time, Nicky has responded to several oil spill incidents along the African coastline. So it made her transition into a current role quite an easy one as the Preparedness and Response Manager. Since 2012, Nicky has also been contributing her animal welfare expertise as a member of the University of Cape Town Science Animal Ethics Committee, and has co-authored several publications, including the egg incubation and hand-rearing of African penguin chicks. So without further ado, Nicky, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Ronis. And hello, everyone. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It really is lovely for you to join us. And as Ronis said, I'm going to attempt to talk to you about offshore fuel ship-to-ship bunkering in Algoa Bay, and kind of just describe our concerns about this practice and how it's affecting South Africa's seabirds. I might have a technical glitch. There we go. All right, so to give context to the talk, I just want to explain where we're talking about for our international people. Excuse me. Okay, so Algoa Bay is situated in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. So where that red circle is there, and Port Elizabeth is the nearest city. We're going to be talking about the bay that's circled at the bottom, and then a close-up of Algoa Bay. So as I mentioned, we've got Port Elizabeth, which is the city, and that's also an industrial port, quite a busy one. The more recent port is Kucha Port, or Port of Nkura, which is also quite busy. I think that was built in 2009. And so these two ports sit in Algoa Bay. Also in the bay are 6 islands that are really, really important for biodiversity and specifically seabirds. And so we're going to be talking a bit more about those in the talk tonight. But also what I've marked out on this map are the anchorage areas. So Anchorage 1 and Anchorage 2 is actually where the bunkering takes place. So those chevroned areas is really important for you to know that that's where the bunkering takes place. And you can just see where Anchorage 2 is, the close proximity to Sinkhole Island. So just keep that in your mind as I continue with this talk. And then further over, we have Bird Island, which is also really important for seabirds. And this is actually an MPA, a Marine Protected Area, declared in 2019. So last year, this was declared. Okay, then just another illustration of where bunkering occurs in the bay and how important these islands are. So where the number one is, this is Sinkhole Island, and it is the island that has the highest population of African penguins globally. So you can imagine that island is extremely significant. And then also where there's a number two, this is Bird Island, and it has African penguins, just over 2,300 breeding pairs. But more importantly, it has 75,000 breeding pairs of Cape gannets, which are also endangered. So these two islands are of significant importance for these two seabirds. Okay, so you'll often hear Algoa Bay being described as a biodiversity hotspot or biodiversity paradise, and there's a very good reason for that. So these are just some of the reasons that I've listed here. It was declared an important bird area by BirdLife International, and that's really due to all the vulnerable and threatened seabirds that call the bay home. And Bird Island was declared an MPA, as I've just said, last year, due to the endangered Cape gannet population. Sinkhole, home to the largest population of endangered African penguins. Algoa Bay has also been known as a safe haven for bottlenose dolphins. There's been huge counts of bottlenose dolphins in the bay, and obviously Algoa Bay is en route to with the annual sardine run. So every year, sardines migrate up the east coast of South Africa and provide food for seabirds and all sorts of marine life. So really, really important. And of course, Dr. Sylvia Earle, the oceanography lady, has declared Algoa Bay a hope spot. And this is really, really special because hope spots are considered critical to the health of the ocean. Okay, so with that in mind, we can now go on to, what is ship-to-ship bunkering? Some people may know and some people may not. Certainly it's been in quite a lot of the media in the Eastern Cape, but perhaps in other parts of the world, it's not that well known. So as my slide says, fuel bunkering is a process where fuel is basically transferred from a vessel to a receiving vessel. And you can see in the diagram here, the bunker supply ship is the smaller ship and the receiving ship is the larger one. Essentially, bunkering is a petrol station, you can call it, that's in the middle of the ocean. Okay. So additionally, Algoa Bay sits on a key trade route. There's huge numbers of vessels traveling up and down our coastline. Approximately 1,500 vessels travel up and down this coastline every single day. So you can imagine the amount of demand for fuel this would require. And then there's all sorts of ships that would go up and down the coastline. These would be container ships, oil tankers, passenger vessels, fishing vessels, bulk produce, all of those. So yeah, this has created a business opportunity where they can refuel ships or refuel petrol or fuel to ships. And this is part of the Operation Phakisa initiative, which was launched by the government in 2014. And the aim of this initiative is to unlock the blue economy, as they call it. So this is through the creation of jobs, It's through bunkering, it's through oil exploration, and it really has been at the basis of this bunkering operation. So it's important to note that bunkering has been taking place for quite a while around the world, and it's considered a very risky operation, but it's normally taking place in sheltered bays or areas where there's not very rough seas. So, so this is why, presumably, Algoa Bay was chosen as the spot for bunkering. But in 2016, in South Africa, SAMSA, which is the South African Marine Safety Authority, issued licenses or issued the first license, actually, to Aegean Bunkering Marine. They're now called Minerva. And since then, another 2 operators have been licensed. So we now have 3 operators operating in the bay. Okay, so this is a table just to illustrate how many bunker operations are taking place annually. And you can see from 2016, there's daytime and nighttime bunkering. So started off quite low, and then you can see 2017, 2018, starting to grow a bit, 2019, and on it goes. 2020, there's a predicted trend. Whether that's on track or not, we don't know because of COVID, but I think you get the idea. I'll go a bit more into it in a moment, but I think for most people, they would be horrified to look at this slide and realize that fuel transfer is taking place at night. So during the oil spill that happened last year, that happened at night, and so did the oil spill that happened in 2016. And obviously, I'll speak a bit more about that in a moment. But if you look at these numbers, it's quite sobering to think that the penguins are very close by, yet these operations are happening throughout the daytime and the nighttime. And of course, at night, visibility is very poor, and should there be a leak or a spill, then it's very difficult to detect that. And obviously, cleanup operations would be a bit more difficult. So why is bunkering attractive for the shipping industry? What are the advantages? And as I've said, there's economic growth, and that's what the government is trying to focus on. There's jobs that would be created. But more importantly, it saves time. So ships would not need to book a berth inside the port. If there's high congestion inside the port, they would be able to basically avoid that. Normally, they'd have to queue up and wait until there's a space, which really takes a lot of time. So they're shaving off a lot of time during their transport journey, and they're also saving on costs. They do not have to pay port fees if they're not going inside the port. So they would rather refuel at this petrol station that I've just spoken about at sea. Sorry. All right, so this slide speaks about, why are we concerned? And it's not just SANCCOB. I think I can speak for lots of other environmental organizations that are really concerned about the process, or lack of process, should I say, that wasn't followed. So since 2016, when ship-to-ship bunkering was permitted, there's been 2 oil spills. So the first was in August 2016, and as I've mentioned, the Chrysanthemum spill was in July 2019. Prior to the permitting of ship-to-ship bunkering, there was no public participation. The public were not consulted on this at all. Prior to the permitting, there's been no risk assessment permitted. There has been some since then, but of course, the damage was already done. There's been no environmental impact assessment. There's been no socio-economic study. So if it's going to bring so much money to South Africa and to Port Elizabeth specifically, what does that look like? We need to see it. There wasn't a carrying capacity study done at the time, and there's been no wildlife contingency plans. In short, there's no due diligence. And with such a risky operation, it's really surprising that these things were not done. So the other concerns that we have is that, Algoa Bay, people who live in South Africa, they'll know how bad the weather can be in Port Elizabeth, and Algoa Bay is renowned for rough weather conditions. When bunkering is occurring, you have a bunker barge next to the receding vessel, and if you have rough weather, then there's a lot of movement, which can really be very dangerous for the crew, and it can also cause leakages and, of course, oil spills. So it's become apparent that the containment booms are not routinely used as a precautionary measure and are not a requirement by SAMHSA or Transnet. So I've got an image here of a containment boom. This is considered best practice internationally, and this is not a requirement for the 3 operators which are currently operating in Algoa Bay. Had there been a boom around the vessel at the time of the Chrysanthi oil spill last year, perhaps all of these seabirds would not be impacted by oil. And of course, we also are concerned about collisions, accidents, fuel emissions, noise generation, and the movement of vessels in the ocean. And these all add to the increase of oil spills, sorry. It's also important to add here that, that there are researchers that are currently looking at the data. So we've managed to get hold of data that looks at how has the shipping traffic increased in Algoa Bay? And over the years, I think from 2012, it's increased considerably. And the penguin population has crashed, and I'll go into that in a second. And how are these two linked? So researchers in Algoa Bay, Lorraine Picajou from NMU, Alistair from BirdLife, and a few other researchers are currently looking at this data and seeing whether there's a link between the increase in shipping activities, the noise generation, the vibrations, the fuel emissions, and whether this is impacting the penguin population. Okay, so I've mentioned this spill in Algoa Bay, and I've also mentioned that it happened at night. So it actually happened at 4:30 a.m. And this happened while one of the operators, SA Marine Fuels, was refueling the vessel MV Chrysanthi S. And here's the vessel. This is a quotation at the bottom of the screen from a representative from SAMHSA. And it appears that one of the fuel tank valves was not closed properly. And this led to the fuel overflowing and eventually making its way into the ocean. So basically, this was a human error. And of course, this can happen time and time again, and this is why we're so concerned about it. A sad day for struggling African penguin populations. And yeah, when you see these media articles, it should be impactful. When you see these penguins absolutely covered in oil, it really does hit it home. So the media obviously covers every single oil spill that occurs along the African coastline and globally. And it's important for people to realize the risks involved and how these birds are impacted time and time again. And because the populations are so delicate at the moment, we really can't afford to make these mistakes. The news article on the right, the rangers, my computer's very sensitive. The rangers nabbed 12 more penguins. So these are sandpark staff, and they are busy collecting penguins off the islands. What happened at the time was that the weather was extremely severe, and the wind and sea swell was making it difficult for sandparks to get out into the ocean and to the islands to look for the birds. And this caused delays. So really, I often wonder during oil spills how many birds are recovered and how many are still out there and just eventually don't get found. Okay, so it was reported that 200 to 400 liters of heavy fuel oil was spilled into the ocean. And it was also reported that 50 liters was lost to the ocean. So heavy fuel oil is extremely persistent, and you can see this penguin covered in oil. It's really like a tar-like substance, and really difficult to get rid of. It's very slow to biodegrade. So absolutely, this 50 liters probably sank to the bottom of the ocean and would not have been recoverable by the oil spill cleanup crews. That oil will then have detrimental effects on whatever else it comes into contact with: fish, plant life, anything in the marine environment would be affected by the toxic effects of oil. Okay, so here's some visuals of the birds that were brought to the center in Cape Recife, the SANCCOB center. And yeah, you can see there's penguins, African penguins, there's Cape gannets, and there were also Cape cormorants, also endangered, that were affected. But interestingly, what people may not realize is that when these birds are collected from the islands, they may have eggs or chicks that they're busy caring for. And so this is why I've included photographs of oil covering this egg. Obviously, it was no longer viable. But it's important to realize that it's not just the birds. It's not about decontaminating, washing the birds, then putting them back out into the ocean, and then, you know, the problem is solved. The problem has a domino effect. And yeah, the chicks we were able to hand rear and release eventually. But of course, any eggs that were that belonged to oiled adults were lost, unfortunately. Okay, so here's a breakdown of the wildlife that was affected during the oil spill. 92 African penguins, unfortunately 4 of them died, 17 chicks, penguin eggs, as I've mentioned, none of them survived, and I don't think all of the eggs were recovered by the rangers because they obviously focused on live birds. 13 Cape gannets and 3 Cape cormorants. There's 130 endangered seabirds that were brought to our center from a small spill, it would be classified as. But that's significant. 130 animals is significant, and it took a lot of resources to look after them. This graph is probably going to shock everyone to their core, unfortunately. So what's at stake here? We've spoken about the importance of St. Croix and Bird Island. We've spoken about the numbers that are currently on those islands. But what we haven't looked at yet is how has the population declined since bunkering started in 2016. So thank you to our amazing research manager, Kata Ledutnia. She helped me out with these stats here. But really, I was very, very saddened to be putting this presentation together. So I've used 2015 as a baseline for the data, and you can see in 2015, there were more than 7,000 breeding pairs of African penguins on St. Croix. The blue, by the way, signifies St. Croix, and the red is Bird Island. 2016, bunkering starts, and as you can see, the penguin population on St. Croix crashes. It's now down to under 3,000 breeding pairs. 2020, just by the way, is an estimate of counts because of COVID. The official penguin census could not be achieved. So this is an estimate count, but we'll use it as it's highly likely that it's accurate. So we're now down to less than 3,000 breeding pairs. By comparison, Bird Island is pretty stable. It's declined a little bit, but it's pretty stable. Okay, let's look at the numbers. So as I've said, St. Croix had over 7,000 breeding pairs in 2015 and have now gone down to 2,500 in 2020. That's a 67% decline. I mean, I just want people to take a moment to allow that to sink in. In the space of 5 years, that population has declined 67%. It's really, really sobering. By comparison, Bird Island, which is further away from the bay, declined 12%. So we know that penguin populations are declining annually just because there's lots of different threats that they're fighting. But Algoa Bay is definitely different. So this suggests that the penguins are not doing well at St. Croix Island. And at the bottom here, I've just listed potential reasons why the population at St. Croix may have suffered this massive decline. Bunkering in itself, the practices and the associated pollution, and I'm not just talking about oil spills, but I'm just talking about the fuel emissions and everything that's associated with it. And then you have increased shipping traffic, which causes disturbance just in itself, and the associated noise and vibration may also be impacting these birds. We also have no idea what's happening to the fish around these islands and how these practices are impacting the fish and whether it's making the fish move away from the bay. So you may ask, what is SANCCOB doing? And first and foremost, we are speaking and acting on behalf of the African penguins and other seabirds, and we have to. They need us more than ever, and we're not the only organization fighting this fight. There's other organizations who are doing a lot of work and feel very strongly about bunkering and the effects it's having on our African penguins. So obviously since 2016, we have responded to the 2 major oil spills that have happened in the bay, and we've strongly opposed ship-to-ship bunkering. And we've done this in a variety of ways. We are engaging with the permitting departments with regular meetings so we're able to voice our concerns and make sure that mitigation measures are put in place. We're part of a bunkering environmental working group, and again, making sure and lobbying against this practice and making sure that things are done, like the environmental impact assessment. We want it to be done. The carrying capacity has recently been done, but it wasn't done in the beginning. We've directly engaged with industry operators, and we've spoken to them and made ourselves clear on our position. We've also sent a formal request to the environmental minister requesting that she stops ship-to-ship bunkering in Algoa Bay with immediate effect. So unfortunately, bunkering is continuing, despite all the effort from many, many people and many organizations. It's continuing. But I'd like to take this opportunity to say that it's time to do the right thing. The Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries are mandated to protect the environment and promote sustainability. And SANCCOB is also mandated to prevent and combat pollution in the marine environment. So these two organizations have a responsibility to protect this really important biodiversity paradise, as I described it earlier. And our fear is that another oil spill, and it does not have to be a large oil spill, but our fear that another one could spell catastrophic consequences for our birds. The numbers that I've just shown you really can't be ignored. I really feel like these numbers are absolutely shocking, and I'd like to ask Minister Creasy whether the economic benefits of bunkering outweigh the risks to endangered seabirds and other wildlife. And that is a really important question. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you've all learned something, and yeah, you're more than welcome to ask me any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicky. I'd like to maybe put a question through to you as someone who was hands-on in the process of washing and rehabilitating oil birds. Can you share with us some of the logistics involved in terms of equipment, human resources, and the overall setup that had to be done to receive and care for the birds that had suffered oiling during the MV Chrysanthi oil spill?
Yes, sure, Ronis. With any oil spill, it's important to be prepared. That's the main thing. So SANCCOB is obviously no stranger to oil spills, and we are well versed. So we have a stockpile of equipment in our Port Elizabeth Centre, as well as Cape Town. And we immediately deployed staff from Cape Town to support the staff in PE. But really, it is a huge undertaking. We had to set up a huge tent outside the facility, enclosures, porta pools, temporary enclosures. We had to put a call out for volunteers to come and help us. It really is a lot of work, and this is, as I described earlier, this is a small spill. But the amount of work that goes into it is enormous. And this spill went on for several months because we had African penguin chicks to hand rear as well.
Thank you, Nicky. I have a question that's come through asking what were the reports about the oil in the penguins during the 2019 oil spill? I'm not quite sure.
Is that the type of oil that they're referring to? If it's the type of oil that's being asked in the question, it's heavy fuel oil was identified. Okay.
Margot, I'd like to ask you, I mean, in the past couple of months, I don't think it's quite a year yet, but we've had a ranger, Edward Ross, that's been placed in monitoring birds, habitats and nests at Bird and St. Croix Islands. Have you noticed a change in the amount of birds coming through, having a ranger present now monitoring those birds?
Hi, Ronis. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, it's been very interesting to have a dedicated seabird monitor, Edward, on Bird Island, and working together with the Sandparks Rangers. His sort of main role there is to identify ill or injured birds, and if he isn't able to stabilize them on the island himself, then they get identified to be brought through to our center. And yes, definitely over the last few months particularly, we've seen a lot of birds coming through, and also particularly African penguin chicks. So when we had quite a lot of bad weather in the sort of early winter, some of the nests were destroyed by this, and then the adults go off and foraging for food, and sometimes often have to go further distances because the fish stocks are quite low as well, abandoning the chicks, and then they need to be rescued. So yes, we had a lot of chicks. I think at one point there was 96 chicks that we had at the center. So Edward was very instrumental in getting these chicks together with the Sandparks Rangers and bringing them through to the center for rehabilitation.
Thank you, Margot. Nicky, I have one more question for you, and it's about the fact that the marine protected area was declared the Addo National Park. Can you speak us through that, please, and the benefits of that?
Yeah, sure. So just to be clear, it's only Bird Island that has been declared a marine protected area, and not Sinkhole. Unfortunately, we're very hopeful that will happen in the future. But what it means is that it offers Bird Island protection. So there's restricted fishing, particularly around Bird Island, and it really does give the penguins a much better chance of finding food. Penguins typically forage between 20 and 40 kilometers from their colony, and by declaring the colony an MPA, then it really does give them an added benefit and a better chance of finding enough food.
Thank you, Nicky. We have a question from Ted and Edna, and they're asking about whether or not there are ground readers on the islands. Can you maybe just explain for the broader audience what those ground readers are for, and if they are?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Ted and Edna. Thank you for joining. So yes, the answer is yes, there are ground readers. And to explain what these are, it's a cable that runs along the ground, and each African penguin that's released from rehabilitation centres are fitted with a transponder, which is a little microchip that you would have inserted into your cat or your dog at the vets, and it has a unique identification number. So, and then in addition, researchers are going onto the islands, and they are transpondering other penguins, or wild penguins, I should say, as well. So the whole idea is that the penguin would walk over this cable, and then the cable would pick up this unique identification number. And from that data, we're able to assess the survival rates. And the information that's coming out of this so far is just really, really interesting. And yeah, we're able to see, for example, on Robben Island, there's birds from the treasure from 2000 that are still alive. So really fascinating information coming out of it.
Nicky, I have a question from Ravi Naika, and he's asking if there are statistics of African penguins for the period of 2010 to 2015. Not sure if you have that on hand now.
Hi, Ravi. I will be able to get the data from 2010, absolutely. So I'm more than happy to share that. I think Ronis will post all of our answers on the chat or something. Hey, Ronis?
Yes, yes.
So Ravi, I'm assuming you want us to compare what the decline was like from 2010, if I'm understanding.
Yes, 2010 to 2015.
No problem.
So I have a question that's come through from our Facebook page for you, Nicky. First of all, she's saying thank you very much for the work that SANCCOB is doing, and you in your role. And she's saying that ship-to-ship bunkering is an exceptional, dangerous process to take place in the open sea. And she really feels strongly that it needs to be stopped in Algoa Bay. So her question is, did you have any reply from DEF?
So far, there's been no response, no.
Another question that's come through for you, Nicky. Mm-hmm. How do we get the environmentalists involved to support the Motherwell community from the pollution caused by EnvironServe. Are you familiar?
From which community, sorry?
The Motherwell community.
I'm not familiar with it, sorry. I think maybe for that person we can chat offline, and I can try and assist them.
Sure. Verona is just adding a comment. We don't have a question for you, but she's just saying that she feels that matters are worse now, having the potential fish farming close to St. Croix as well, which will also impact on the penguins, gannets, and all marine life in Algoa Bay.
Yes, that's actually true. What I didn't mention was that Algoa Bay, apart from being a busy industrial port, Kucha and Port Elizabeth is bunkering and also aquaculture. So the risks are much greater because of the amount of traffic going in and out of that bay. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicky and Margot. I don't have any further questions coming through. Is there any closing statement that you'd like to share with us from either side?
No, I'm just very happy that people are interested in this sort of webinar. We certainly would like to do more in the future. I think oil spills are very much at the top of people's minds at the moment, given the fact that the Mauritius spill has been hogging the headlines. Yeah, I think in the past it's been only when there's an oil spill do people really think about it, but actually the potential of an oil spill is every day, and that's why it's so important for us to be prepared and be ready, because if we're not, then yeah, we've seen what happens to the boats.
Okay. Margot, in closing, maybe I can ask you to share with our participants and all those listening on Facebook about the volunteer opportunities, both at PE and Cape Town centres.
Thank you, Ronis. Yes, we basically can't do what we do without the help of volunteers. And so we have a very strong program at both centres in Cape Town and in Port Elizabeth. We have obviously local volunteers, and our centres have been quite badly affected, obviously, over the COVID period, where the international volunteers, which usually form a very strong portion of that base, have obviously not been able to be with us. But as things are starting to change, we're hopeful that in early 2021 we'll have some more international volunteers coming back. But yes, absolutely. If there's anybody that is interested in volunteering, or if you know of people that want to volunteer, please just look at our website for the opportunities. We also have internship programs, which is an even more intense program that one can apply for. Going through all the different aspects of rehabilitation, really getting to work with the birds. I think it's sort of for 3 months and a 6-month period that people can do internships for. In the Cape Town Centre, you can also do a chick rearing internship, which is very specific to handling the African penguin chicks. So yes, but all this information, would be able to be found on our website. And so if you know of anybody that's interested in volunteering, they are very welcome to contact us.
Thank you. So thank you to all who have joined us, both on our webinar and following us on our Facebook page. It's, as always, a pleasure to be in your company and to share our insights with you. We are trying to have a variety of topics, so you'll see our webinars will always be different, and we'll try to share with you a little bit of everything that we do at our centres. So please do register for the next one. We'll be sending out communication. We have David, our veterinarian based in Cape Town, who is going to be presenting next week, Wednesday, also at 7 p.m. and he's going to be sharing part 2 of his talk on interesting veterinarian cases that we've seen at SANCCOB. So please do check out our newsletter and click on the link and register, and we hope to see you there soon. Thank you so much. Have a good evening all. Bye-bye.
Bye.